All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to break down a really passionate, and let's be honest, pretty fiery, political analysis. It's a defense of Nigerian President Bola Tinubu's economic reforms, which have been, to put it mildly, controversial. The whole argument frames these policies not as a mistake, but as a kind of painful but necessary surgery for the entire nation. So let's dive in.
And right out of the gate, the piece doesn't pull any punches. This quote really sets the tone for everything that follows. It introduces this central metaphor that's going to drive the whole argument: the surgeon, the scalpel, and the nation as the patient on the operating table. For this author, this isn't just about economics. It's about having the guts to forge a nation in fire.
Okay, so to really get what the author is saying, you have to buy into this core idea. They're asking us to see the president as a surgeon who has to perform a really difficult but ultimately life-saving operation. And from that point of view, all the pain that people are feeling right now, well, that's not a sign that things are going wrong. It's just an unavoidable part of the healing process.
So what's the author call this whole thing? The scalpel of reform. Now, this isn't just a catchy phrase. It's a super deliberate way of framing these policies. It paints them as these precise, sharp instruments designed to cut away the disease that's been festering in the economy for years, while fully admitting, yeah, a procedure like that is definitely going to hurt.
All right, so now we get into the nitty-gritty. The author moves on to the specific policies that make up this surgery. And, just as important, they talk about the public backlash, what the source dramatically calls the screams coming from the patient.
And the source breaks it down into 4 key steps, 4 big reforms that each cause a major outcry. First up, you've got subsidy removal, which the author says led to screams of poverty. Then there's the foreign exchange reform, which sparked cries that the entire economy had collapsed. After that, tax reform, which was hit with accusations of targeting the poor. And finally, believe it or not, even huge infrastructure projects were slammed as just wasteful spending. It's presented as this totally predictable cycle of pain and protest.
But here's the big twist in the narrative, according to the source. The author argues that these reforms were anything but rash, hasty decisions. No, they were supposedly the final product of what's called a year-long revolution in planning and policymaking.
And to back that up, the source lays out all this evidence of what it describes as a really deep consultative process. It talks about a national brain trust of experts, a plan that was in the works for over a year, and was debated everywhere, from town halls and universities all the way up to the National Assembly. This is all presented as a stark contrast to what the author calls the circus of criticism that only came after the fact. And this quote, wow, it really gets to the absolute heart of the author's justification. They're basically arguing that quick, superficial fixes, the bandages, are completely useless when what you really need is a fundamental structural change, building a whole new hospital. The point here, from the source's perspective, is that this painful path was a conscious choice over the false comfort of easy solutions that wouldn't actually fix anything.
But this analysis isn't just about defense. Oh no. In this next part, it goes on the attack, taking direct aim at the president's key political rivals. And the language is pretty strong. The source flat out calls them clowns and puts them right in the crosshairs.
And these aren't just vague insults. The source gets really specific. It claims the political figure Atiku watched corruption bloom during his 8 years as vice president. Another opponent, Pitobi, is painted as someone more interested in Biafra dreams than in dealing with Nigeria's actual practical problems. Now, it's important to remember, these are the direct claims being made in the material we're looking at.
So, we've had the painful surgery, the defense of the surgeon, and the attack on the critics. So what's next? The payoff. The author now shifts gears to paint this big, optimistic picture of the future, the promised land that's supposed to make all this current pain worthwhile.
The source starts ticking off these huge, tangible projects to show that progress is real. First up, the Lagos-Calabar Highway. And the author's message is clear. It's not a maybe, it's a coming.
And they don't stop there. Next on the list, another massive project, the Sokoto-Badagry Highway. Again, the language is key. It's underway. It's happening right now.
And to cap it all off, we have cross-country rail. And get this, the phrase used is already rolling. The point the author is hammering home is that these benefits aren't some far-off dream. They're starting to become a reality.
And this is how the author wraps it all up, with a really bold prediction about how history will see President Tinubu. The claim is that he'll be remembered not for his popularity, but for his courage, as a doer who acted decisively while everyone else was hesitating. It's the final nail on their courage over comfort argument. So after walking through this whole argument, we're left with this massive central question. Now, the source we just explored has its own very clear answer, of course. But the whole debate really forces you to think about this fundamental challenge. How does any country balance the very real pain people are feeling right now against the promise of a better future that, well, isn't guaranteed? It's a tough one, and it's really at the heart of what it means to govern.